Picture this. It's early 2026. The entire global economy is teetering on the edge of collapse. But it's not because of a financial crash or a pandemic. No, it's all because of the shutdown of a single, narrow strip of water.
And this number? $134.50. That was the price for a single barrel of oil just a few weeks into this crisis. A price that sent absolute shockwaves through, well, pretty much every market on the planet.
So you have to be asking, how did we get here? How does one waterway shutting down threaten the entire global economy? Well, that's what we're going to break down. How did a regional fight spiral into the worst energy crisis we've seen since the 70s?
To understand this, we have to go back to a single day in late February, the day a military operation basically lit the fuse on this whole powder keg. So on February 28, 2026, you have these coordinated airstrikes from the US and Israel targeting Iran. The code name was Operation Epic Fury, and the result was absolutely stunning and incredibly destabilizing. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was killed. Just like that, decades of what people called shadow warfare, fighting through proxy groups, that was over. This was now open conflict. And Iran's response? It was immediate, and it was intense. We're talking missile and drone attacks hitting Israel, hitting US bases in the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and then came the big one. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps issued a chilling warning. Passage through the Strait of Hormuz is now forbidden. And this wasn't just some empty threat. It was a new formal policy they called maximum asymmetric retaliation. Basically, using any and every unconventional tactic to hit back at a stronger enemy.
And that warning, that brings us right to the geographical heart of this whole crisis, the Strait of Hormuz. You could argue it's the most important choke point on the entire planet.
Yeah, just look at these maps for a second. They really tell the story. On the left, you see all the major oil fields and export terminals. On the right, the natural gas infrastructure. See how everything funnels right through that one narrow channel? That's the Strait of Hormuz. It's the only way to get from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. A staggering amount of the world's energy flows through that single point.
And if you want to know just how critical it is, look at these numbers. Before this all kicked off, a full quarter of all the world's seaborne oil went through there. 20% of all its liquefied natural gas, or LNG. I mean, when that flow stops, the global economy doesn't just feel it, it gets a gut punch.
So how exactly did Iran pull this off? How did they shut it down? Well, it wasn't a simple blockade with ships. They used a pretty scary mix of tactics. They were laying sea mines, making it a nightmare to navigate. They launched drone and ballistic missile attacks. We have confirmed reports of at least 21 strikes on merchant ships. It was a campaign designed to do one thing: terrify commercial ships into staying away. And it worked.
Okay, so you have this regional conflict, right? Let's trace how that snowballed into a massive global economic shock.
And here's the thing that a lot of people missed. This wasn't just about the price of gas to fill up your car. It was about something way more fundamental: our food. It's this concept called the energy fertilizer nexus. See, natural gas, particularly LNG, is the key ingredient for making nitrogen-based fertilizers. So when Iran shut down LNG shipments from huge producers like Qatar, fertilizer production collapsed, and that directly threatened crops and food security all over the world.
And you can see the impact in real time on this timeline. February 28th, the day of the strikes, Brent crude oil is at about $97 a barrel. A week later, Hormuz is officially closed, boom, it jumps to over $108. By March 12th, Qatar, a massive LNG exporter, has to halt its shipments. It's over $126. And then just 3 days later, it hits that peak we saw at the very beginning, a jaw-dropping $134.50.
I mean, to really put this into perspective, you just have to look at what the International Energy Agency said. They didn't pull any punches. They called it, and I'm quoting directly from our sources here, the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Think about that. Bigger than anything in the 1970s.
So, with the global economy absolutely reeling, the focus had to shift. It went from military strikes to this incredibly high-stakes game of diplomatic chess. Everyone was just trying to pull back from the abyss.
And the tension, you could cut it with a knife. President Donald Trump issued this really direct, really chilling threat to Iran. He warned that if the strait wasn't reopened, the U.S. would target their civilian infrastructure. He said it would be, in his exact words, power plant day and bridge day all wrapped up in one.
And this right here, this shows you just how far apart they were. The U.S. position was simple: reopen the straits unconditionally right now.
Iran's reported demands, on the other hand, they wanted security guarantees that there'd be no more attacks, and then this really wild proposal, a $2 million fee for every single ship that wanted to pass through. I mean, the gap between them just seemed impossible to bridge.
But then, literally hours before a U.S. deadline was set to expire, a breakthrough. Pakistan managed to broker a deal. The terms were really simple. A 2-week ceasefire, the U.S. agrees to stop all attacks on Iran, and in return, Iran agrees to temporarily reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Now this ceasefire, it definitely pulled the world back from the brink, but it was so fragile. And it left everyone with this huge hanging question. Was this little 2-week truce a real first step towards peace? Or was it just the quiet eye of a much bigger storm that was still on the horizon?